Yes, that's right. The Survivor Know-It-Alls are back here after episode number 5, and
Yeah.
the RHAP flag is at half-mast tonight, Stephen
Oh
Fishbach.
my God! Whoa! Well, excuse me. Yeah. Easy there. Yeah. Um, I really thought Anik was gonna,
Get it
go
together,
away.
Stephen.
I know. Wow, I'm not ready for this. We're only 4 minutes late. I need like a good 10 more minutes before
Yeah,
I'm ready to start
you don't get ready till
podcasting.
about 9:30
Yeah,
for this.
exactly. Anna, I really thought she was going to go all the way. I think a lot of people thought she was getting a hashtag winners edit. Crazy episode tonight, a really strong episode. And you know what? I think there's like a lot of really interesting strategic meat. And I really like this season because it's like not like crazy, but it's interesting. And there's interesting characters doing interesting things and making interesting decisions. I like it. I like it more than Worlds Apart.
Yeah, well, we have, for the first time, it seems like in a while, we had a swap that wasn't completely lopsided, where we have two very evenly matched tribes. A lot to unpack tonight post-swap. We'll talk about Anna, whether she could have done anything wrong, whether the Chan-Lo tribe did everything right, and much, much more here tonight on First Know-It-Alls After the Swap. Always a fun show to do. And, of course, we're taking your comments. We're going to take a lot of questions in this hour. Hashtag RHAP, plus also on our YouTube channel at robswebsite.com/YouTube. Little programming note, Stephen.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I had been promoting that we were going to have the tag team of your good friend Abby Maria and Pete on the podcast.
Oh, wow. The full... do they have like a hyphen name? Like Pete,
I don't know if they have a hyphen
Peter
name.
Maria?
Yeah. What I have to say, though, is that Pete has a family emergency, and we're going to talk to them in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
They cannot talk to me on Thursday, but one of the all-time great RHAP guests is going to step in. Your friend and mine,
Tyson.
Sophie Clark.
Sophie, great. Yeah, she's good too.
Sophie is going to step in and do the recap with me tomorrow, and then voicemails with Angie Kantz to follow, plus our exit interview with Anna Kite. Talk to her on Thursday morning. But a lot to get to tonight, Stephen.
Did she? Her last name is pronounced Kite?
I believe it's pronounced Kite. Kite Runner.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, Stephen, let's pick this up with Anna, and let's talk about ultimately where she is. This boot spot, this fifth boot after a swap, first boot after a swap, we've seen a lot of players go out in this spot where there's not really much that they can do. Would you put Anna in that camp with people like a Kelly Wentworth and some others who went out in this spot? I mean, sometimes we've seen both things. We've seen where a person who's in a pretty good position pre-swap ends up being targeted for reasons beyond their control in this spot. We've also seen people come in after a swap and then make some faux pas, which lead to them being voted out. Do you feel like that Anna did something wrong, or do you feel like that this was circumstances beyond her control?
Yeah, I think, Anna was in a great position. Last week, 2 weeks ago, she was really the queen bee of the beauty tribe. She kind of was the leader of those three girls. She had looped in Caleb, obviously. He was medevac. She still had the dominant position on that tribe. Then suddenly there's this swap, topsy-turvy, no fault of her own. Suddenly she and Ty are in this minority. And it's even worse for Anna and Ty because of this really interesting twist that the producers created, which we should be talking about later, where Julia's coming back into the game. So there's this fear about this future beauty person who's going to come back. And so as a result, these two beauties who are in the minority really are in trouble because it's almost worse than there being three beauties, right? If Julia were just with them, they would have a voting block, they would have leverage, and they would have, like, the situation on the ground would be what it was. There'd be no sort of, like, fear of the future. But because there's this fear of Julia coming in, I think there's this huge target on the beauties. And, this tribe made a decision based on gathering and likability, and Anna's not going to beat Ty with that. She's not going to out-provide Ty. She's not going to out-adorable Ty. And so I think she played her best bet, which was to go hard, play strategically, and the only thing that I think she could have done differently, and this is one of those like big maybes, like hard to say, who even knows, but could Anna at Tribal Council, when Ty is doing this whole monologue about how he doesn't have the idol, does Anna in this position say, hold on a second, you showed me the idol?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Could she have gone harder to throw Ty under the bus? What was the better plan for her sake? I don't know what her read was that she was getting from Ty, and we can certainly talk to her about that on Thursday, but I just don't know what their connection was. It didn't seem like they had an amazing connection pre-swap. So for Ty to go out on a limb and play the hidden immunity idol for her, that would have been a very bold move on Ty's part, and I think a very questionable move on Ty's part. And we will talk this through from his perspective as well, and as well as Scott's gambit here tonight with his decision. But for Anna, I think that she started that way. It was shades of Kelly Wentworth again, where we had her not in her first season post-swap, but in her second season post-swap, where she's over at Takeo, and it's her and Terry Dietz are the only people.
It was the reverse. Yes, it was exactly the reverse.
Yeah, and she's telling everybody, boy, Terry Dietz, she's out looking for the idol. And actually, she had the idol, but she really did a good job of trying to put the blame on him to the point where people wanted to make an alliance with her. And we saw Anna do that same exact thing, but then she abandoned that plan at the point where Ty really disarmed her with showing her the idol. And I don't think that that was his strategic intention. Let me disarm her so she stops throwing me under the bus. He seemed like he really wanted to play the idol for her. And then it was Scott that sort of said, hey, Ty, lay off on that. Why don't we keep the idol and just, don't go down with the ship here with Anna?
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. That like he kind of really unmanned her, like in terms of her whole argument about him. Like she wasn't really hustling. The only time when she might have realized though, when he's giving this long story at Tribal about how there's no way that he is the idol because he's terrible at directions, which was like the quintessential. I think the gardener doth protest too much. Like, why are you going on this whole, like, Jeff just asked you, do you think there are idols in this game? And suddenly you're talking about how bad you are with directions. Like, does this raise, like, any buzzers for FBI Agent Joe? But yeah, so that's the only place where I see, like, she could have maybe said something different.
But I think that's a bit of a nitpick. I mean, I totally
agree. Total nitpick. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you had to pick a nit.
Yeah. And I also think that the other big part of this that we haven't seen is, where was Scott in all this? Because it really did seem like he was playing both sides. And I have to say that I don't know where you're giving the fishy yet tonight, but I might say that he could be a good candidate because I thought that was a real bounce-back week for him because I had not been super impressed with Scott's game to this point. But I thought he did a really good job of working those two ends against the middle, or at least or not him in the middle, against each other. And, I feel like those brains must have felt like they had Scott with them, even though we didn't see any sort of direct conversation with them. They must have felt like
shelter. Wasn't there a conversation with Scott in the shelter where they were like, where this is, we're just going to knock off one of the beauties, I think.
Yeah. Well, very little post-challenge. Too much of that. But we also saw Scott making those beauties feel like he was with them as well. So I think he did a really good job. Actually, I think all of the Brawn players actually did a tremendous job this week, and it was nice for them to get away from there. Maybe it's just that beach that really, sapped the intelligence of those people.
Well, we both tweeted about this, Rob, which is that, this is more credit for the intentional Mott Singh strategy where, it actually benefits you on any season, but especially a 3-tribe season, to lose a bunch of the early challenges. You merge down numbers, no one thinks you're a threat, and suddenly everyone wants to use you guys as the swing vote, as the leverage. And we saw that on both of these tribes. We saw on Chanlo and Gondor.
Gondol, I believe.
Gondol, okay.
Gandalf,
yeah. We saw them both, look to the Brawn people as this swing. It was exactly what happened, right, with Denise and Malcolm on Survivor the Philippines, and it was exactly what happened with the Brains on Survivor Cagayan. So,
just to be fair, with the Brains tribe in Survivor Cagayan, it actually worked out a little bit differently, where nobody was looking for them at the merge, but in Survivor Cagayan, all 3 of the Brains happened to end up together on a tribe, and they ended up in similar numbers. It was 3. Their 3 all just happened to be together with a beauty tribe that was really scattershot and all just throwing each other under the bus. So they actually were able to consolidate their power, whereas Malcolm and Denise ended up going their own separate ways and then reconvening at the merge.
But the thing was, the beauty tribe, which had been undefeated pre-swap, right? They were like all coming to the Brains to like settle their old scores.
Yeah,
and, like,
they lost. They did lose Bryce pre-swap, but I do understand what you're saying.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
We'll get fact checked, Stephen. We gotta keep fact
No, you're right. Well, someone would point it out if you didn't. But yeah, the point, like, they were like a dominant tribe, and they were like using brains basically for their own purposes rather than looking at the brains tribe as a real threat. The exact same thing is basically happening here. It happens a lot of the times with the smaller tribes. But anyway, the bronze played it perfectly. You can certainly overplay that position, but the best move is just to kind of like sit back and let it happen.
But I do think a big part of Anna's downfall here tonight, and again, I thought she was in a really tremendous position coming into this week to the point where I've made her the #1 pick of mine in a Survivor draft with AJ Mass earlier this week, which I would like to have a mulligan on if that would be possible. But I think that the really big thing, the biggest thing working against her was this fact that Julia went to basically exile Braun Beach to go and be the person to come back into the game, because everybody's thinking, okay, well, we can't let these beauties get back together. But I feel like that the idea for anybody to even consider potentially voting out Ty in that spot, as Aubrey was seemingly lobbying for, doesn't that seem like a really bad plan?
Wait, why Ty? Why is Ty worse than Anna in that? I mean, I agree with you that Anna's better. I mean,
again, and maybe that we're just being sort of like, oh, that the women on that tribe are probably working together, and again, we know what they don't know.
Right.
But doesn't it seem logical that Julia would be a more of an ally of Anna's than Ty? Just sort of like it really was how it was, and then also, wouldn't that be your first guess?
Well, but if you look at the Brains tribe, they're all male-female pairs. You've got Aubrey and Neil, you've got Joe and Debbie, and you had Peter and Liz. So from Aubrey's context, there's no reason to think that the girls are more together than a girl would be with a guy.
Yeah, I think that it was a mistake on the part of the Channel O tribe not to be throwing that immunity challenge in the first place, because they ran the risk that potentially this third Beauty tribe member was going to be going onto the Gondol tribe, and that
Wait,
they
could have colors. I do not know these names at all.
We could just call them blue and yellow.
Yeah,
blue and yellow.
Which one should have thrown the challenge?
I believe that the yellow tribe should have thrown. They did lose, but it didn't seem like they were throwing it. They had Anna on the puzzle. I think that those three brains should have gotten together as true brains and said, we need to throw this challenge because there are 5 of us in the game. There are currently four Beauty tribe members on these 2 tribes. There could be a 5th Beauty tribe member potentially coming into the game. If they are our biggest competition, we need to ensure a Beauty tribe person. We have the numbers here on our tribe. We need to ensure that a Beauty tribe member goes home, because Julia could have potentially come back into the game. Hypothetically, that we could have either seen, Debbie or Neil be voted out of the blue tribe, and you would have not only lost a number from brains, but you would have potentially had a 5th Beauty come into the game.
The only thing I'll say is that if Aubrey doesn't trust Peter, it's not a great move to throw a challenge, because who knows? The 2 Beauty and Scott and Peter could all team up.
She did trust Peter, though. Joe doesn't seem to trust Peter.
No, Aubrey said this episode that she didn't trust Peter. Joe in the preview said there's a confrontation coming, but Aubrey said she was like I kind of have 3 people, but there's really just 2 people because I don't totally trust Peter. So and Peter said in the past that he wants to flip. So I mean, typically, I'm very pro throwing a challenge for a strategic end, but in this case, I don't know if I would do it if you're Aubrey and Joe.
But in terms of what they had already decided at that point, they had already decided that they were keeping Peter around. I feel like at that point...
They don't know what Peter's decided, though. I mean, even if Peter has said, they're not saying his confessionals. I hear what you're saying. I just don't think, and again, I'm very pro throwing, but I think in this case it's too dangerous. Because Peter's an outsider. He's alienated.
Yeah, but they're keeping him around either way. They're trying to work with him. They're not targeting him at all.
They're not targeting him, but he could be targeting them.
He could be.
I mean, he's not. We know, but he could have.
This whole situation really ends up being just a terrible break for Anna. It's reminiscent back to Survivor Exile Island, Stephen, back where they merged the tribes. I believe they started with 16 people in that game, and then they had, I believe, either a draft or some sort of division. They had 4 tribes of 5, and they ended up, oh, I'm sorry, 4 tribes of 4, and they ended up going into, they had 8 and 7 it would have been. So they sent Bruce Kenegai to Exile Island, and I believe it was one of the big mistakes for Terry Dietz and the Lamina tribe back in that season to not throw the second immunity challenge in that season, because what ultimately ended up happening was that Aris and Kasaya was able to get rid of the useless Ruth Marie and replace him with Bruce Kenegai, whereas Terry was unable to, and he was already friends with Bruce from the Old Man's tribe, that he could have brought in his ally who would have been an asset to Lamina. Instead, Bruce goes to Kasaya. So these decisions of, you're not only losing somebody, but you're replacing them with somebody. Now, Julia wasn't the same sort of person out there on Exile Braun Beach that Bruce was going to be, where it was a perceived physical asset. Maybe you're looking at her as a number, but here specifically, where Bruce had very few loyalties other than maybe to the older men, which was only a couple people in the game, that you have pretty clear loyalties for Julia.
This is where your recent rewatch of all the seasons is really advantaging you, Rob. My
nothing else
of
that we can talk
Exile
about
Island are
just in terms of, like, you're not. This is a complicated vote because you're not just removing somebody.
Yes, exactly. Because Julia's coming back into the game. Exactly.
Right. There's somebody is coming back in and taking their spot. So you really have to be thinking fourth dimensionally with whoever you're going to get rid of. And I think that for Chan Lo, I think that that's probably almost like a zero-sum game for them. Okay, we're going to vote out Anna and replace her with Julia. I think that that was the correct decision on their part.
Yes, I agree. And I think with Julia coming back, like, when Aubrey early in the episode was saying, like, I'm worried about Peter, I got nervous. I was like, oh my God, they're not going to actually do something so dumb as to turn on Peter. Now with this Beauty coming back, you're basically destroying yourself. So I actually think everyone on that tribe, Yellow, played it as well as they possibly could have. I think that it was the right call for the brains. It was the right move from Scott. And I think Anna did her best, and I think let's talk about Ty. I think it was the right decision, and it sounds like you do too. It was the right decision for Ty not to play his idol here. Now, do you want to walk through like the pros and cons of both?
Sure, we can walk it through. I think that it was the wrong decision to even mention that he would do that. I think that if he wants to do that, he just can. He doesn't need to bring Anna and Scott into it. Maybe he could just tell Anna, maybe Anna alone, but to tell Scott also. I think that was probably a bad idea. But it does have that added side effect that he does disarm Anna to get her to stop throwing him under the bus. And
it really cements him with Scott. I mean, he didn't know this, obviously, but just through luck. The fact that Scott knows about Jason's idol, like Scott says, he's the only person now who knows all about the super idol. So for Scott, suddenly he's really invested in a relationship with Ty. So Ty didn't know this, and so you can't say it was like the right move for him, but it had like fantastic results because now Scott is going to really want to be his ally.
Yeah, and I believe that's at the heart of the Fishbach doctrine when you look at Survivor strategy. Isn't that, from a fundamental perspective, one of your basic principles of the game, that idols are best used to build coalition?
Yeah, although you know what, last season has kind of made me rethink that, just because they were so effective when invisible. But I've always thought using them to build a coalition is the right way to do it. And I think Ty had that instinct, right? Like when he shows it to Anna and Scott, he doesn't know about that Scott knows about Jason's, but he is thinking like, hey, I'm showing this to these people as a way to build trust.
Mm-hmm. I also want to discuss this from Scott's perspective, because I think that Scott's gambit was an interesting one tonight, where he could have either A, gone with the plan to just go ahead and try to blindside Anna. He could have B, then gone ahead with the plan to, hey, Ty, definitely play the idol. Let's blindside Peter, get that idol out of the game. But we have this super idol twist where he's like, hey, Ty, don't waste the idol. Hang out with me. I'm your buddy. Like, you could trust me. I know where and he doesn't say I know where the other idol is to Ty.
Which is brilliant.
What we saw. But he can go back to his main ally, Jason, and say, hey, this is the guy we need to talk to.
Yeah, but he doesn't even need to say anything. And the great thing about his position now is that he's the only one with that information. So he can say something if he has to, and he doesn't have to say, but he doesn't have to say anything. And I agree, and I think that's like this alone has kind of made this Super Idol twist worth it because it's governing strategy even apart from the actual playing of the Super Idol. It's making people think, how do I get in a position to use the Super Idol? And I think that's what's so exciting about any new twist in the game, where it's not just the strategy of how do I play this thing in my hand, but like how do I position myself in the future to be in a better position to play this thing?
All in all, for those people from the Brains tribe, the way they got to this point ends up being, they didn't know about Ty's idol. I don't know if they were necessarily thinking it through of the possibility of the fifth beauty coming into the game had they won immunity. But all in all, I think this is a great night for the people from the Brains tribe because they end up getting Anna out of the game, and maybe unbeknownst to them, I believe, and I don't know how you feel about this, that Anna was the leader of that beauty tribe.
Oh, totally.
And the person who was organizing the three women who were there. Now, what does this game look like for Michelle and for Julia without Anna, who is seemingly the person who kept that group so tight?
Well, so, and I think this also is like, that's part of why it's so great for Ty, right? If Julia comes onto this tribe, and one great reason for him not to play the idol is if Julia comes onto this tribe with Anna there, yes, Beauty now has a majority, but Julia's going to be tighter with Anna, and now without Anna there, Julia's going to have a tighter alliance with Ty, right? Because that'll be the one person who she knows who she's going to. So by cutting Anna out of the loop, Ty keeps this great alliance he has with Scott, and he's potentially building something with Julia that could be great. I want to talk through like the Ty's decision, like whether or
Go
not,
for it.
yeah, I mean, so because I saw a lot of people on Twitter were saying, yes, he should have played the idol, no, he shouldn't have played the idol. And the thinking of why he should have played the idol was like, you've got the chance to take control of the numbers on your tribe now. You play the idol for Anna, and then boom, you've got 4 people, yourself, Julia, Anna, and Scott. You have control of the swap tribe. But the problem with that is it's just a swap tribe. If this were the final 6 or the final 7, that would be a great move. You take control of the numbers of the game. But it's just like the swap, that's just a one-off. You're merging in it, or in a couple of episodes.
And also for Ty, in terms of where he stood,
Yeah.
it was one thing when you had Beast Mode Cowboy there, and I felt like that Caleb really was kind of the glue between.
Yes.
Where those other 2 men on the tribe to the women, at least from what we saw. But for Ty, he wasn't in a great position with those women anyway.
No.
So it didn't make a lot of sense for him to even volunteer to Anna that he was going to save her. And then I think it would have made less sense for him to waste his idol. I think he should keep that in his pocket. And if there was any way to avoid losing the idol, and then Julia comes back, and he doesn't need to give Julia, the dirty details that I could have saved Anna, but I didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
The idol. He can just say like, oh, that was messed up. Hey, it's beauty. It's us against the world.
Yeah, exactly. I saw some people saying, as well that like, oh well, he's gonna, he won't have any trust with the other beauty tribe. But he doesn't need to tell anybody that. Like nobody's gonna know that.
Right.
And I think people, I think you see, oh, they're all in the beauty tribe, therefore they're together. But we've heard Ty a couple of times say, I'm not with the girls. The girls are could target me. I could be the next one out. So he clearly doesn't have a huge history of trust there. And I think it's right for him to normally I think it makes general sense to stick together. But when the question is like, are you losing the idol in your pocket for this person? It could be him next week. How many times have we seen someone play an idol? And it's them next week. I don't know. Probably sometimes.
Plus, on top of that, he opens up a door for himself with that Brawn tribe, potentially post-swap. I don't know. Anybody's going to be gunning for Tai Trang coming into the merge where, you have maybe if it turns into where if it's sort of like the beauty tribe turns into like the no-collar tribe from Survivor Worlds Apart, and they all just get like blown away, and maybe there's just like a Will Sims left and nobody was gunning for him as sort of like the one person left from no collar. If Ty can end up being in that, like, oh, the one person left from his tribe, nobody's coming for him anyway. And then on top of that, you also have the scenario where I think coming into this week, I think that with Chan Lo should, without even thinking, they should be throwing this next challenge and voting out Julia.
Yeah, I think that's like the move. That's definitely the move, especially now that they've shown they have the the voting that they can pull this basic move. I think that's the right decision.
And in two votes, they could completely have decimated the Beauty Tribe and get them down to only 3 members heading into the merge. And it could be 3 Beauty, 3 Brawn, and then 5 Brains potentially.
Yeah. And I think, again, I'm just still seeing people on Twitter saying, it would have made Beauty stronger to play it. But there's a difference between making Beauty stronger and making Ty stronger. Ty needs to improve his position in the game. Giving Beauty the control of a swap tribe in a way that doesn't really help you, that actually hurts you individually in the long term is not. I think it's too big a loss for too little a gain.
Yeah, this is a great episode tonight. We had so much to talk about. We've only talked about one side of things. Let's switch gears and talk about the Gondol tribe and where they are. And I don't remember... Blue. Let's talk about Blue. Not since Survivor the Amazon has a battle of Blue versus Yellow, and it's such an exciting post-swap experience taking place on an episode of Survivor. Sure. So it's like Tambaki and Jabiru all over again.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. So, Steven, for this 2-2-2 split, how interesting is this? I don't believe in this 3-tribe format we've ever had this before.
Oh, I love it. It's so great. You've got this real fascinating power dynamic, and what's interesting too about it is, again, like the tribe's histories come into it, because you have there's no reason that any one two should be more powerful than another two, but because of the Brawn tribe and their disastrous history, they're the ones who everyone wants to ally with.
Yeah, and similarly to that first tribal council for the Brains tribe, which was also, 3 pairs of 2 sort of jockeying for, who was going to be the pair, and it was really Joe and Debbie in that vote. That was the pair that the pair of Liz and Peter versus Neil and Aubrey were fighting for. It does seem like Sydney and Jason are squarely in the middle, and then again, this is a battle of, Nick and Michelle versus the Debbie and Neil here.
Well, it's interesting, too, because, now that you say that, I mean, the reason that both sides wanted to ally with Joe and Debbie was perceived weakness, right? That's what Liz said. She was like, Neil is more threatening, so I want to be with Joe and Debbie. So, perceived weakness is really the greatest strength you can have in the early game of Survivor.
Right.
It really is. It really is. But yeah, it was fascinating, and Debbie, I thought, did such an amazing job. And I think people are I think we're all primed to see Debbie as ridiculous, because she came off a little bit ridiculous in that first episode, but she did such a great job of fluffing Sydney and going to Jason and just fully, just overwhelming Sydney with compliments about how smart she is and how ripped she is. But obviously, you have to be smart and disciplined to be so ripped. I thought it was so good.
Could I hedge the Debbie love tonight?
You can say whatever you want.
To me, I felt like that she was coming off a little bit like Coach when you guys merged in Tocantins, where she was really like, okay, here's JT and Steven, and she was almost to the point, I felt like she might be giving them too much information, to the point of, oh, Neil and I, we're super close. I actually thought Neil might have been going home at that point, where we saw Neil get the idol in the beginning of the episode, and then once she volunteered the information about, oh, Neil and I are super close, plus, oh, I really want a woman to win this game, I thought that maybe, and again, it was positive. It was positive, but I was wondering, maybe could she be going too far?
Right. Here's the thing. I agree. That's an interesting Coach parallel, because you're right. Coach did the exact same thing at our merge, where he basically he came over and started fluffing JT and me. But I thought it was very Coach JT. That's actually really interesting. Kind of an idealized version of herself. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, well, let's have a pull-up contest.
Yeah, totally. Really, really interesting.
So I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe if this is something that was set up for maybe potentially next week. Because if you are Jason and Sydney, who would you rather work with? Would you rather go with the Beauties, or would you rather go with the Brains? And did Anna getting voted out at that last tribal council, did that signal to Jason and Sydney, go with the Brains and vote against Beauty?
Yeah, because the Brains are going to be in a more dominant position after the merge.
Well,
you want to, yeah, because
or is it the opposite? I mean, or did that signal, okay, we took out a Beauty, now take out a Brain and level the playing field?
I don't know, because the thing is, like, if Scott is allied with the Brains, right, you don't want to necessarily be like triggering that war.
Right. Jason and Sydney don't know where Scott voted and where his loyalties are.
Right. It's interesting. It is interesting. I hear what you're saying about Debbie giving away too much, but she didn't really give. There was no plan that she actually gave away. So I agree that could be a downfall of what she's doing, where it's like too effusive. But I don't know. We haven't really seen it so far.
Because the appeal to me, I would think, if I was Jason and Sydney, would be, well, if Debbie and Neil are very close, I would rather split them up and then keep around. We have Nick and Michelle, who are both from the same tribe, but not necessarily working together. I'd rather split up a pair. Even if you have two people from the same tribe, I would rather split up the pair that's the tighter two, which Debbie is signaling that her and Neil are.
Right, I hear you. Right. But if you want to build an alliance with someone, you want it to be a strong alliance, right? You don't want to build a fractious alliance, right? The Tyson doctrine is that once you swap, that's what your reality, right? Like, that's what he told me before I went out to Cambodia. He's like, once you swap, that has to be your reality. That has to be what you're thinking of as like your now, because you don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know what's happening over on the other tribe. Like, this is your, and of course, like, when you get back together, then you compare notes, but you really need to think in terms of the new swap tribe. And I think in that
that's
situation,
like the original battle of blue versus yellow.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
That's probably where Tyson got it from.
Yeah. So in that situation, like, I think you want to be with the tighter group. You don't want to be with a fractious group out of the gate. It's like day 14 or whatever. It's not day 30.
So where do you think that Jason and Sydney ultimately go if you had to call your shot right now?
I say they go with the Brains, and the reason is perceived weakness. I think that Michelle and Nick are going to look to them like better competitors than maybe like Wacky Debbie and Goofy Neil, and I think they're going to want the people who they think that they can do better against in the end.
I do think, though, the one thing that would give me pause with that is that Nick did not get the douche edit tonight in the post-swap.
Oh my! He had some comment about, like, when it comes to deceiving people, I'm the greatest.
But he didn't get Dodo edit.
Not the Dodo edit, but he got the douche edit.
He got it a little arrogant.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where that goes. So I mentioned earlier, Neil with the hidden immunity idol. All three idols are in play. How interesting is that for you in these two tribes with three idols?
That's pretty interesting.
Neil and Jason are on the same tribe. They both have an idol. Do you think that there is a possibility that they will compare notes?
I don't know. It's interesting. The Neil thing, I feel like he's the best person from that tribe to get it, don't you? Like, I'd love to see it in Peter's hands. That would be great, just because Peter's a great character. I think Neil's a pretty great person from that tribe to get it.
Yeah. For Peter, I mean, where do you think that he stands as well as the person who I also felt like coming into the swap, even though that he was somebody who was down and out in his tribe, I felt like that he was in a good spot in his tribe because that he would be in the best position to defect if he wanted to, which he did not seem to want to do. There was no talk of Peter joining up with Scott and Ty and Anna. He ultimately sticks with his own numbers. Do you feel like that Peter is in, especially if there's a falling out with Joe in the offing, do you feel like that Peter is in a potentially okay spot?
Well, that's actually a good question. Should Peter have defected?
Well, Ty said he didn't like it. That was the big problem.
Right.
Peter is not really winning people over. He had a good moment at the beginning of the episode where he was being the doctor for everybody, but then by the time they had the swap, it didn't seem like that him and Ty were. And Ty seems like the easiest person ever to get along with. That he has bromances with Beast Mode Cowboy and Scott Pollard, but Peter he doesn't like. He can't get along with Peter.
Yeah. Do you think that Neil was undermining Peter in that first scene when Peter was like treating Joe and Neil kept on kind of like snarking from the sidelines like, "So Peter, how's it going, Dr. Peter?"
I didn't really get that, but I could potentially see it.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't. I know. Just a thought.
Okay. Any other big thoughts about this episode before we start to get to some of these questions?
We've talked about Neil and the Idol. We've talked about Scott. We've talked about the two. It is. I do feel like you know, you are right that I think that the beauties are less tight than the brains on blue, right? You know, we haven't seen any interaction between Nick and Michelle, and so I think they're probably going to be less effective as a couple. And the other thing is, you know, we've said it before, going to tribal council is the best way to learn how to play the game. You know, it really affirms trust, and I think that as a result, I think I think Neil and Debbie are going to be smoother operators than Michelle and Nick in terms of just like reinforcing each other, you know, like helping each other out, like truly trusting each other.
And if we could also, before we get to the questions, I want to just pause and eulogize the Beauty Tribe, because I felt like that the medevac of Beast Mode Cowboy, I believe, ended up having disastrous consequences for this tribe. I had said coming into this, I felt like that this might have been the most complete tribe out of all of the six-person tribes we've ever seen. Ultimately, because of Caleb's medical evacuation, this tribe would have come in fully constituted with 6 players.
Yeah.
There would have been 2 additional players in the action. Both Caleb and Julia would have been in the mix. There is no possibility that Anna would have gone home unless something truly bizarre happened and like 4 of the beauties.
Right, they could have done like a 5-2 or it's not like no possibility.
We've seen like Sarah Lacina end up she's on a tribe with everybody and she ends up being the only person.
But they would have. I mean, I guess they wouldn't necessarily have a majority on each tribe, on at least one tribe, because they could split 3 each way, right? But they would at least have had a plurality on each tribe.
I guess you're right. In 2 tribes of 7, there would have been a pretty decent chance she ends up on the side with 2. But that being said, for the Beauty Tribe as a whole, that this really was a disastrous blow, Caleb going home. And I didn't think it was going to affect the game as much as it ultimately did.
It's crazy, and it's so interesting. You know, like if he had just pushed a little less hard, everything would have been different. And it's just such a reminder that in this game, there's so much chance that comes into it. Nick tweeted a couple days ago, or maybe weeks ago, like there's like no luck in Survivor. That's the most dumb thing I've ever heard about Survivor.
Okay, let me give you my sound effect.
That's the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard.
Who's that? What's that?
Alicia.
Oh wow.
You're right, and that was one of the big things that you took away last season about how that you had told me, following the season, was that you had forgotten how many thousands of decisions happen every single day. Many of them are completely out of your control and just totally random and chance-based, and that's what's dictating your success in the game.
It's true, and obviously you have some, you can control certain things, and you have your strategy, and you have your game.
It's not all luck. It's not random.
Yeah, exactly. But something like Caleb getting evacuated, where some tiny, if he had worked slightly less hard, or if Braun had gotten their balls faster, just like every little thing, and then they would have won the challenge, and then they would have been out of the side. Every little thing just like comes into. It's like life.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's not. It's actually much more than life, because life is much more structured than Survivor.
Life is much more structured than Survivor, but there is a plenty of random chance that happens.
No, for sure. Well. I mean, it really is like life. But it's like a crucible of life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's a perfect encapsulation of what we go on every day. Okay.
Yeah.
Steven, let's get into some of these questions, and why don't we start off here with Fire Fist Ace.
Fire Fist Ace wants to know, was the red buff thing stupid? It unfairly destroyed the Beauty Tribe's numbers, a tribe that didn't go to tribal once. What was your take on the red buff thing?
As the great Jerry Manthe once said, whoever said this game was fair. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's completely random chance. We've seen many Survivors that get screwed by a random swap. Tough, deal with it. That's ultimately the answer. I mean, I think that Anna is a person who had really a very high ceiling for her as a player. She ultimately gets screwed, and Julia probably gets screwed by the swap here as well. I mean, there's nothing that you can do. What was it unfair? I'd say it was much more unlucky than unfair.
I really loved this. I thought it was such an elegant, interesting way to take a kind of unhappy circumstance and make it interesting gameplay. They really very easily could have just swapped as 6-7, whatever. One tribe has more people than the other tribe, so be it. But I think making it into a strategic thing where Julia's gone, now the vote has to be what do we do? We're going to get Julia. We have to take that into effect. Like, I thought that was such an interesting way to, like, bring thought and strategy and mind games out of an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah.
And, and like, does it affect her? She's safe, but she's going to be a bigger target because she hasn't had these 3 days with these people. I loved it. I thought it was great. I really disagree with you. Not you, the question.
Yeah, what did I say? I'm agreeing with you.
No, the question asker thought that it was stupid.
Okay. All right. Let's take this question from Carrie Graveline. Even though it didn't play a role in this tribal, isn't it foolish for Joe and Aubrey to seem so dismissive of Peter in making the decision of which beauty? I was actually really floored by that at the point where the three of them are having a conversation and like, okay, Peter, we're gonna let the grown-ups talk this out. You go talk to the other majority of people that are here, and Joe and I are gonna work this out. Almost, seemingly like, we've seen this before in a post-swap tribe where two people think that they're going to strategize in front of the rest of the group, and everybody says, hey, why don't we just vote out one of these two over here that are strategizing in front of everyone?
It literally was, before we saw this, with Peter and Liz, and obviously with many other people as well. But that's the crazy thing. They're literally doing the thing that they disliked so much about Peter and Liz. Oh, they're so arrogant. They're over there, like, plotting all our fates. No way. Joe and Aubrey are doing the exact same thing. I couldn't believe it. They're like, all right, yep, we'll take it into advisement. What a way to alienate someone who at this point you actually really need.
Yeah, you need his number, because I think that Jeff was trying to force a 3-3 split. Kind of feel like if I'm Peter in that spot, I'm the first person to flip. I'm that Vetus in the Brad Culpepper vote.
Oh, totally.
Those votes come out 3-3. I'm Peter. I'm like, screw Joe and Aubrey.
Yeah. Johnny Horstman wants to know, why didn't Anna tell everyone that Ty had the idol after she was voted out since he screwed her over? It's a great question, Johnny. I actually wanted to talk about this too. What do you think, Rob? Should Anna have told everyone that Ty had the idol?
And this is post-vote.
After she's voted out,
yeah.
She feels Ty has screwed her. Hey, you screwed me, I'm going to screw you.
I mean, maybe she's just not a vindictive person. I mean, there's no strategy for that. It's like,
right.
we're arguing over, like, well, why didn't she spite Ty? Maybe she thought Ty is a nice guy. Maybe she's not that kind of person. I mean, she's a poker player. She's a poker player. She's used to bad beats. I mean, I'm sure that it's not the first time that she was going into a hand where she had pocket aces and ends up losing the hand in an unexpected fashion. I think that maybe she's just not a sore loser.
I agree. I think it would have just looked kind of vindictive and spiteful, and I think that the way to do it is just to say goodbye, be gracious. It's not a good look to, like,
Yeah.
It can be fun, but it's not a good look. Yeah.
Like, maybe she dislikes the Brains tribe people more than she dislikes Ty at that point.
Yeah. And I thought, like, the way she handled it was great and classy, and I really hope they bring her back.
Okay. All right. This is from Christopher Frick. Is it fair to say that Debbie is already one of the most compelling players ever? Great strategically, great narrator, a little bit insane. Steven, how hyperbolic would you like to get tonight, 5 episodes in, on Debbie Wanner?
I think Debbie Wanner is one of the most legendary players this game has seen. I think she is going, she's fantastic, right? I mean, we all know and love Coach, and she is the female Coach, but maybe better strategically, with none of that, like, religion garbage. Not like that religion is garbage, but that Coach's specific use of religion was garbage. Mm-hmm. To, like, weigh her down. I think that she's fantastic. I agree. Great strategically, great confessionals, a little bit insane. I think that's you said it perfectly. I love Debbie. She's a legend. I hope she's back many times. I could see. I mean, with the Debbie and Coach thing will happen. There will be a tribe someday with Debbie and Coach, and it will be a beautiful thing.
Okay, so what you're saying is I need to put a call out to Coach to get his take on Debbie?
Oh yeah, I can't actually. Why haven't you done that yet?
I just thought of it now. That's a good idea.
Yeah, you got it.
So when we're talking about high ceiling, super high ceiling in terms of a Survivor character. I mean,
she's well liked, yeah.
She could be. She has that potential to be one of the greats, and one of the most iconic players in recent memory. But let's, again, 5 episodes in.
Yeah, it's hard to say. She goes out now, and then a lot happens. Like, it's like Vince, right? Like, Vince could have been a huge player, and he just got kind of, his wings were clipped too soon. But I think if Debbie, continues in the game and goes deep, I really think, she's got it all. She does, and she's she's nice to people. She's sympathetic, you know. And I actually think that that's something that where she's like Coach, and what people didn't really know about Coach is that he was like a super nice guy too. You know, he was like a coach. He was encouraging. He was positive, and I think she shares those virtues.
Okay. Steven, what does a full plate jacket have to say?
Yeah, full plate jacket wants to know, is Ty's position better or worse now with Scott knowing about the idol? Well, it's better.
Yeah,
right?
I think so, because now you have Scott who's looking out for Ty. And I think that you have, I mean, the decision is going to be next time around where they're going to talk about the, you know, the three brains. Now, maybe they don't need Scott anymore. Scott could potentially be in a worse position where, as if he was going to get rid of one of the people from the Brains tribe. Again, this is why it was his gambit, that he could have potentially been part of that new 4-person majority in that tribe. Now he's sort of like, if they for whatever reason Aubrey falls in love with Julia, or Joe is like, oh, she's just like my granddaughter, we can't get rid of Julia, you know, they're like the new you know, Elizabeth and Kentucky Joe. Yeah. All of a sudden, then Scott is somebody that you could take a look at going into the merge, because Steven, as you know, the merge boot is right around the corner. It would not be unprecedented to take out a big physical threat right before the merge, because I heard that's a great idea. I heard somewhere that you got to strike while the iron is hot. You have a big physical threat. Take him out right before the merge. Nobody will see that coming.
Overrated. It's overrated. You're right. I think you're right. But I also think that now that they have voted together with Scott, I think that you are already starting to accrue trust. I mean, I hear you. I agree with that, I guess. You could see it either way. I mean, from like the chess piece theory, like, yes, like Scott's next. You don't really need him. But like, why immediately vote against someone who has just voted with you?
Yeah, it really just comes down to, I mean, what if Julia just comes in, knocks everybody off their feet? Oh my God, she really pledges undying loyalty to the Brains tribe. I don't even like Ty. I don't like Ty. You know, and then Scott is like, boy, he's going to reconnect with Jason. We saw how tight him and Sydney are. Why don't we get rid of him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Now they have that majority that they need. They don't need to, you know, they're safe.
Okay. Connor Barry wants to know, considering that many people had high hopes for Anna and Liz, why do you think that they both ended up falling short? And is there still hope for a woman to win this season? Coming into this, we had two women who seemed extremely smart. Liz counts cards. Anna plays cards. You felt like both of them were going to be potential threats. We were worried about Liz because we felt like, okay, she's on the Brains tribe, and people will see her coming, whereas Anna, she's on the Beauty. She could hide behind, people will think that maybe she's just a beauty and she doesn't have any substance to her. 5 episodes in, they're both gone.
Sydney. I think Sydney is amazing. You know, she's so low key, right? She can't be low key physically, but she hasn't told anyone that she's gone to UPenn. And you know, she's a freaking goes to an Ivy League school. Like, you know, she's super smart and nobody knows it. You know, and it's like exactly what you're saying about Anna. She's underplaying it with the whole brawn facade. You know, she's in a great position in her with Scott and Jason. We saw how well she could kind of just sort of like fly under the radar, still make a bond with Alicia, not alienate Scott and Jason. I really thought the way she played that idol catastrophe was so perfect on that tribe. Now, granted, she didn't end up with the idol, but she also ended up not pissing anybody off. And I think that is even more important. Even more important than having an idol on Survivor is not being a threat and not pissing people off. I love Sydney, you know, you've got Debbie saying to her, I want a woman to win. You know, I think, and, you know, she's in a great position now over there. And Debbie too. Debbie's in a good position, you know. So I definitely don't think it's inconceivable that we'll see a winner, a female winner. And you know, that's great. It's been actually of the past 5 seasons, a woman has only won 1 of them. So it would be great to have a woman win another one.
Yeah, I almost feel like this is in some ways like an Aesop's fable. You have the three smart young women. One was a brain, one was a beauty, and one was a brawn. The brain was immediately exposed because everybody knew that she was smart. The beauty, they knew she was smart, and then she had all beauty too. But the brawn was the best disguise for the intelligent woman because nobody saw her intelligence underneath her muscle.
Yeah, it does feel like very like a fable. You're right. Although Aesop's fables never like really, you know, they were all about you should be clever, you shouldn't be like muscular. You know, like they were all about brains. But you're right. It's interesting. Yeah, like yeah.
Okay, let's take a few more.
Go to the gym is the lesson from Aesop.
Yes, CrossFit. That's the lesson after all.
Andres Sank wants to know, what is it with poker players doing horribly on Survivor? Jean Robert, Garrett, and now Anna. And I don't think Jean Robert did horribly. He was like 8th place or something, right? He was maybe 9th. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that a thing? Poker players do terrible on Survivor. I remember Boston Rob won a season of Survivor. I don't know if you think of him as a poker player offhand. Poker players did a pretty good job on Big Brother this past season.
Yeah, but that's not Survivor.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then why is Beast Mode Cowboy here?
Math Fridge.
Small sample size.
Small sample size. That's right. Like, why do cops do well on Survivor?
Yeah, Albert Destrade, third place finisher.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Math Fridge wants to know, hey, Rob, you said Anna would go further in the game than Liz because she wasn't labeled a brain at the start. Do you think if Liz started with the Beauties or Anna started with the brains, that either could have gone further? It's kind of something we just sort of talked about a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you would think that Liz, would have been in a better spot, but who knows? I mean, that the same exact thing could have happened to her in this post swap. Again, I believe that there's not much Anna could have done differently. Had Anna been in Liz's position in the Brains tribe, I mean, who's to say if she could have avoided that first vote off? Right. You think that maybe she wouldn't have struck up the same friendship with Peter because we didn't see Anna and Peter bond so closely in their time together, but who knows?
Right. Yeah. Who knows? Very, very hard to say. Yeah.
Zach Kennedy, would a twist of no idols possibly make for a good season? It would give it a classic feel and wouldn't center around idols every tribal council. Big Brother 10 tried this. And that wasn't Survivor Token Chains like to some degree of like, oh, we're bringing a classic season. I mean, they were idols. You guys had idols, but I mean, the old hey, the twist is
an idol.
Yeah. The twist is no big twists here.
Yeah. You know what? I have been in Joe's position of every day, every hour, you're thinking, where's the idol? Where's the idol? And you don't know. Maybe the twist is no idols this season. But, looking at it from outside, it's really a lot easier to say they're not going to go backwards on that one. They're always going to move it forward. Idols are a great kind of element of randomness. And just like the swap, it's something random that adds a lot of interesting complication to the game. Idols aren't totally random because you have to find them, but there is a ton of luck with who finds them as well. And skill, right? You have to look for it, you have to work for it, you have to get away from the tribe intelligently. So I think it's such a really fundamental part of the game now. It seems I don't think they're going to go unless they do something bigger. They're not going to go back to a pre-idol universe. I don't think.
I agree.
But again, having been in Joe's situation, you think who knows? Maybe we're not going to have idols for the first 2 weeks, and then we're going to have 30 idols in the last 2 weeks. There's you just don't know when you're out there.
Okay. Edwina Shelton, why does Scott think just because he knows two that have hidden immunity idols, he's in a good place? They probably won't share.
You know what? I think though, if you can make a case, right, for a new alliance and why it helps your alliance, it's just like people are saying that Ty should have played it for Anna tonight, right? If you're in a place, and especially, once you're in the merge, once the merge comes, having that power, just the knowledge of the ability to sort of play that super idol, that maybe they would share in the right situation. And I hope they do. I hope it emerges. That would be so sweet.
I think that you can't help but think that. It's like playing a video game where it's you meet somebody that's like, oh, I have a lock, and then you meet somebody who's like, I have a key, but I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I got to get these two people together. So I think that you can't help but feel like that's a powerful position to be in.
And he's the only one who knows, which is so great. And it's something that he could play, right? It's something that he doesn't, maybe it won't work. But also, as we saw, just the knowledge of it itself is having an effect. That's what's so cool about it. It's just the knowledge of it is affecting how he's thinking about the game.
Who did you give the fishy to?
A Ty.
Ty. Okay. Just because he chose not to play the idol?
He chose not to play the idol. I thought that he ingratiated himself much better to the tribe. He kind of played, and I thought that, I thought that whole tribe was great. I thought everyone really did really well today on that tribe.
Yeah, I would lobby for Scott.
I like Scott. I almost gave it to Scott. I almost gave it to the whole yellow tribe. Because
I thought that Ty was the one making a bad move, and Scott was the one who sort of pulled him aside and said, like, hey, bro, like, actually, you're making the wrong move here. What you want to do is keep the idol, stick with me, don't hold on to that. He's able to pick up an ally. He made friends with the Brains tribe, and then I also got to threaten Anna out of the game.
No, I think Scott would be another very good, recipient. But here's the thing: I start to draft these things during the episode, and it's very hard to go back. It's very late.
Hard to go back. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do one last question, Steven.
Claire Wendlandt wants to know, what did you think of the preview of Debbie's crush? Could love be that tiger's downfall?
Let's not speculate too much on the previews. I think that
one more question. Amanda Fallon wants to know, what was it like for Steven to be the puzzle tonight?
Yes, what was it like for you to be the puzzle, Steven?
It was an honor. They made a fishy puzzle for me, and if you looked at the pieces, they all had they all spelled out Steven.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you got to Cambodia, did the production show you, like, Steven, we made this in your honor?
Yeah.
It was really, 100 pounds of fish.
Well, the initial idea was for me to actually be out in the ocean, and the tribe would come. No, they would come rescue me, and then they'd have to, like, lug me up the beach, and then I would be splayed out, and they'd have to arrange me in such a way that I fit over myself. But logistically, it didn't work out for me. So once I was voted on to the next season.
All right. Well, if you want to follow along with Steven's People blog and see why Ty got the fishy in more thorough explanation, you can go ahead and follow Steven Fishbach on Twitter @StevenFishbach or one of his many Facebook pages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when he got so popular, he needed multiple Facebook pages. That's what happens when you go back on the show.
Yeah. Well, you must have a full Facebook docket.
I got a Facebook page. Facebook group, and then my personal Facebook.
Oh yeah, what do you got? Yeah, me have many Facebook pages. You've got like how many YouTube accounts do you have now? There's about 18 of them, as far as I can tell.
Some of those are imposters. Some of those are people impersonating me.
Yeah,
you gotta shut them down. Okay. Of course, we are going to just kick off this Survivor week. This is just the start, tip of the iceberg, because we will have exit interview tomorrow with Anna. The chat room is telling me that it's Anna Kate. Anna Kate.
Oh, not Kite.
Not Kite. We'll see. Kate.
So she didn't fly high as a kite.
Yeah, she didn't soar.
No.
She's just Anna Kate. That's what I'm being told the name is. And I will look that up before the exit interview tomorrow. Plus, we will get into our recap episode with Sophie Clark. Very excited about that. Plus, get your voicemails in with Angie Kantz, robswebsite.com/voicemail or 323-282. RHAP, and then Wiggle Room and Why Anna Lost, all coming early next week.
Oh yeah, and leave comments on the website too. Is that the best place for comments? I check those obsessively. I love the comments.
Yeah. This episode easily, we'll do 300, 400 comments on robswebsite.com. Most of them will be positive. A couple of egg people get a little punchy in that comment section, like they feel their oats behind that egg. But we do love the comments, and we do love hearing from you guys. And for the most part, mostly a very productive conversation we have on.
Yeah, it's great. I love reading the comments and and responding.
Yeah.
This was good. I think we had some good analysis here.
I think this was one of the best know-it-alls that we've ever done.
Really?
Yeah, I think that this was I think that this was we had a great episode to discuss, and all sorts of possibilities to. I said last week I didn't think we had a lot of strategic meat to chew on, but this was a real Brazilian barbecue tonight.
Well, yeah, churrascaria.
Yeah, and really just whetting the appetite for Abby Marie in a couple of weeks.
And it's really such a testament to this season. The season was underhyped. I think we all kind of came into it thinking like, okay, whatever, like let's just get through this one. And it's been great. And I thought tonight was interesting and compelling and had a lot of interesting decisions. People were making interesting choices based on their knowledge. I think the producers were doing a great job in kind of like giving them the things to make, whether it was the Super Idol or the twist with Julia, just kind of like setting those wheels into motion, and the players are taking a great job of running with that. And I think it's really lucid and spelled out. And you see why people are making the choices that they're making. I'm loving this season.
Yeah, so far so great on this season. Love the underhyped seasons.
Yes, always underhype.
Yes, always underhype. Is that the hashtag, always underhype?
Yeah, I like it.
All right, great
just
show.
underhype? Is that always underhype? You're right.
Or always be Matt singing.
Always be Mott singing too. Yeah, with a double hashtag. Something with always.
All right. So looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Thanks so much to Scott St. Pierre pulling your comments live for us during the show. And now, Stephen, you're not going to be with us next Wednesday, correct?
Yeah, well, that's like I hope it's a terrible episode. No, I don't hope that. Next Wednesday I'm going to be in transit. I will be flying through the sky.
So Stephen and I will reconvene maybe 2 weeks from tonight, potentially merge episode. So that should be a big show next week. Josh Wigler chomping at the bit to get back on the know-it-all seat.
Yeah. Okay.
Very excited.
Yeah.
Very excited to get back in here.
All
right. So looking forward to that as well. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
Good night, everyone.